One of the things that is so powerful about stepping into the worth of your own voice is that you give yourself the dignity of living your best life at your greatest potential when you learn how to ask for what you want. And we're not talking about, some materialistic layer, although that's fine if those are things they feel. There's no judgment, but it can be something as I want respect, or I deserve more money, or I'm negotiating flexible hours, or I need this, fill in the blank. You have every right to honor the worth of your own voice.
That was AmyK Hutchens, and you're listening to episode 173 of the Building Psychological Strength podcast, where we uncover the information, tools, and techniques to turn our mind into our most valuable asset.
The courage to face fears with persistence.
Being able to be present enough in this moment to choose my response thoughtfully.
We have the strength to bend to life stressors, to bend to adversity without snapping, without breaking.
There are only 6 things that contribute to our quality of life, and they are all experiences.
In every moment, we are deciding who we want to be and how we want to live our lives.
Noticing what your brain is doing and then being able to make choices.
Mobilize the things that we know lift us up.
Fear is not logical. It's primal.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Building Psychological Strength podcast. My name is April and I'm your host. I want to check in for just a second. How are things going? We're mid-May right now. We've all been through quite a lot in the last 2 to 3 months. Things have changed a lot. We've been through a lot of adversity. A lot of us have faced a lot of, personal demons, likely. And here we are. It's mid-May. Things are shifting again. And it's a really good time to check in and just ask yourself how things are going. What are the things that have gone well? What are the things that haven't? And with both of those things, what are the pieces that you want to change, increase, decrease, carve out, do differently? Asking yourself those intentional questions right now as we shift through this next set of changes that we're all experiencing is going to be really important and also a very valuable opportunity for you. It's for this reason that I'm so excited to welcome this week's guest. This is, I believe, her 3rd time on the podcast, and every single time I get to speak with this week's guest, it is an incredible experience. So this week we are speaking to a woman by the name of AmyK Hutchens. She is an international award-winning speaker. She's an Amazon best-selling author, and she has over 19 years of experience in training, coaching, and consulting. She's done more than 75 speaking events per year for clients like Starbucks and Expedia and Securian and all these other big companies and many more. And she travels the world helping leaders become master communicators so that they can lead, innovate, and sell and collaborate more effectively. She does this one conversation at a time. What I'm excited about is today we're diving into a conversation with AmyK about exactly what I just mentioned. We're all starting to shift into what our new normal is going to be. And if you're like me, you've noticed a few things over the last couple of months. You've noticed that there are areas of your life that you've been able to sink into that you want to take with you into this new phase of your life. There are likely changes, things that you want to be different in this new phase of your life than they were prior to the pandemic breaking out. And what is going to be necessary in order for these changes, these new boundaries, this different way of operating as we go back to quote unquote normal, what's going to be required are very effective conversations where you get specific about what it is that you want and we effectively communicate and ask for it so that you can get it. So AmyK is exactly the person that we need to be speaking with this week to help us prep for those conversations and think about how to have them. Not only that, so we have a great conversation about that, but we also speak in depth and very candidly about the worth that all of us have in using our own voice and the fact that we deserve to ask for what we want and what we need. And there's so much confidence that you get from just hearing the way that Amy talks about our own individual worth, that I don't want you to miss the back half of this conversation because we have such a great discussion about that. And I want you to walk away with this feeling like you are empowered to ask for what you want and also informed in a really great way to do it. We also talk a bit about Amy's new book. It's called Get It, The 5 Steps to the Sex, Salary, and Success You Want. This is basically a how-to manual for having really difficult conversations or negotiating for what you want. She breaks it down. It is like a cheeky, awesome read with really meaty content in it. She breaks it down into 5 steps. And the book itself is completely straightforward, so easy to digest, but you'll walk away with really actionable information, as you will with this episode with AmyK. I mentioned she has incredible energy. She is just a joy to have on this podcast. So I'm so excited to welcome AmyK Hutchens back for her 3rd time on the podcast. AmyK, I'm so excited to talk to you today. I love talking to you every time you're on the show, but I think we have some really great stuff to go through today, given the situation that people are in their lives. So thanks so much for being here.
April, I'm honored to be asked.
Yay, good. Okay, so to give people a little bit of context, you are this world-renowned expert in helping people have difficult conversations, helping them communicate a bit better. Can you tell us just like the quick and dirty of the work that you do so we can dive into so much of the good stuff that we have planned for this?
I'm a master communicator, and the only way that I got here was by not being one to begin with. So I learned the hard way, and the lessons that I've learned, when I share them, people just have so much more success more quickly. And that's really sort of then my purpose and my drive. It's to really make sure that you are getting your heart's desire. So as cheesy as it sounds, being brilliant in business and happy in life, it's actually my motto, is really helping people along the way become masterful communicators, because whether it's leadership or sales or innovation, communication is just a fundamental necessary skill.
Absolutely agree. Well, so one of the reasons why I was really excited to have you on and have you on right now is that at the time that this episode is released, we're talking about mid-May. And all of us know the situation that we have been in for the last few months and what has been happening, not only globally on that macro level with the pandemic, but also on a micro level within each of us and our individual lives and our life experience. Now, we talked about this a bit before we hit the record button, but here's my prediction for, folks listening to this so that you guys hear this out there too. My prediction is that although we've been through, all of us, a really difficult situation that required us to work differently and isolate and really change the way that we live our lives, my prediction is that there were parts of it that we found that actually benefited us, that we actually preferred. It might be the flexibility of working from home. It might be loosening the, expectations and requirements on your appearance. It might be having more time, although maybe some more balance would be nice, but having more time to spend where you can really focus on your kids. It could be any number of things that would be individual for people. But that's kind of my prediction. And as we go back to or return to whatever our new normal is going to be, I'm curious if there will be people who want to make some changes to what normal looks like and have it be different than how it was before. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you nailed it, April. I think that what we've been through has been extraordinarily tough. And I don't want to dismiss the tragedy. We had a loss in our family on the front lines of New York City. I know that other people have lost loved ones. So this This phase has been tragic and it has been felt. I think that for the majority of millions, though, you just predicted exactly what we're going to experience. And we're going to have a harder psychological reset in the coming 4 to 8 weeks than we did. And here's why. When we react to a crisis, we have this adrenaline fueled rush. It's as if our stem reptilian takes over and says, okay, we're going to do these things in order to survive. And collectively, everybody comes together because we're in the same storm. Now, I know we've heard a lot of people say we're in the same boat. We're not. Everybody's in a different boat. We're in the same storm, but some boats are a lot nicer than others. Some people still have their jobs. Some people are in food bank lines, so different boats. Yep. But what happens now is we get comfortable and we start to figure it out. Like you just said, at first it was like, oh my God, I'm home with my kids. And then 2 weeks later, like, I'm kind of liking this 30-second commute. And then you're like, oh my God, I miss the connectivity of my colleagues. And then you're like, but I love the flexible work hours. So as we step into this next phase, you're going to get more resistance to going back to normal because our lives have improved in many ways. And we don't want to lose that newfound either joy, flexibility, freedom. And so now we have to learn how to ask for it and how to navigate it and to really come from a place that creates a win-win. So one of the best phrases that you can use right now when you're having this tough conversation, whether it's with a colleague or a direct report or a boss, is to start the conversation with the words, how might we? Like, how might we set up? How might we stay flexible? How might we increase productivity while also incorporating more flexibility and really getting to the heart of it, which is let's co-create a better future together.
I love that. And I love the phrase, how might we? We actually use that in a lot of life design stuff too. And I love that, it's so action oriented, right? The word how triggers, we're looking for a solution. Like we're trying to find a way. We're not just, speaking in concepts here or, in, metaphorically, whatever. We're actually looking for a solution to an issue. And might is like the biggest invitation to dream up different options that, hey, we're not saying we're married to them. We're just saying might. Like, let's think of a bunch of options and get them all on the table and see what might work. So I love that phrase for so many reasons because it helps people immediately open up their minds and think more broadly because they're not completely wedded to something. The only goal is that we're trying to find a solution. I love that phrase.
And this is the perfect time. So one of the things that I've been telling all of my clients is we are living outside of example right now. Like we have not been through this. We've had pandemics before, but in our lifetime, this is extraordinary and it's unprecedented. So if you think about the fact that we are living outside of example, now is the time to take advantage of, well, then what good examples, what protocols are we going to set? So instead of going back to the whole, well, we've never done it that way before, or I don't know if that'll work, for you to really go in and take charge, to be courageous and to be confident and say, hey, if we're living outside of example right now, then this is my opportunity to create a new normal, to create a more exciting future for myself, and to actually advocate for yourself. So a great example is, you and I were talking before the call about how many parents have been juggling the go to work, have kids, have all these community and causes and charities. And it was a tremendous amount of responsibility and stress and an unbelievably, top 40,000 things to do in your top 5 list, right? And now's a chance where other people have more empathy. Other people are like, oh, this is real. And I hadn't experienced at the level. So now is the time to say, let's lean in. Let's validate these emotions and these experiences first, and then problem solve. So rather than dismissing somebody else's experience or dismissing it as a one-off, let's validate what we've experienced. Let's find empathy in it, and then we can problem solve together.
I love it. I mean, because what I want to encourage people to think about is exactly what, you were just hitting on. It's like, there are pieces of this that were really difficult for us, right? There were pieces of this where we were juggling, using the parent example again, juggling multiple hats. A lot of parents were trying to teach their children at home while they were working full time, or parents who have kids who are my kids' ages, they're very young. So I'm trying to work while you might still hear it. We're recording this a few weeks before it comes out. My kids might be crying in the background. Like I'm trying to work while my young children are at home. And that divide is really difficult for people. But what's interesting is that isn't unique. The duration of it is unique to this experience. But as an example of something we may want to change going forward, this isn't a unique thing. Kids get sick. They have to be home sometimes. And giving parents the ability to set a boundary and say, okay, when my kids are home, one of us needs to be able to focus on them because this is too hard to juggle. That's just one example. But I bet there are, a dozen different boundaries, even something as simple as like, think about how much work you're getting done in a 1 hour period because you're not being interrupted every 10 minutes because you're sitting at your desk and people are doing sort of drive-bys, right? Like even that is a boundary that you can set in your new life as you move into it. But as you mentioned, it requires a conversation. It requires us to be thoughtful about how we approach the situation and ask for what we want.
I think that that's really powerful that what you're saying can go both ways. And I think it's the idea that we have tremendous amount of time given back to us from not commuting, from the lack of interruption, or at least being interrupted less. I think that the other thing that is important to realize too is that there's going to be more grace right now because we are going through this storm together. And what I mean by that is I've had so many Zoom calls where kids have been sitting on mom's laps. And when I say kids, I'm talking everything from a 9-month-old to a 16-year-old. A 16-year-old boy came in and sat on his mom's lap and she was like, okay, guys, I'm not telling him to leave because he hasn't done that for 2 years. So it's like, you're finding all this incredible community support because we are in it together. And so I think that when we come out of this, these are some things that we're going to need to really ask ourselves, how good is it for me to ask for what I need now? How good is it for me to ask for greater flexibility, or how good is it for me to reset this and make some of these pieces part of my new normal? And I love that question. I use it a lot with my coaching clients, but the idea is, sometimes I joke when they're trying to like lose weight or make healthier choices, we'll say, how good is it for me to skip the wine, or how good is it for me to go to the gym? But it's a brilliant question to ask yourself right now to get your courage and your confidence up before you have a tough conversation is, how good is it for me to go in and ask now for a little bit more balanced life? And I think you have every right to do that.
Something else that you are exceptionally good at, I agree with everything you just said, and something that you're exceptionally good at is getting people to understand that the ask that they're making holds weight, right? Sometimes we feel like we need, like we're not entitled to ask for something like that, or we don't have the power to ask for something like that, or who am I to make a demand like that or ask for a change like that? But you're so good at helping people see that their value is there and that they absolutely can, ask for what they need. Can you talk a little bit about how to get in the right mindset? Because you're hitting on it right there. How good is it for me to make this change? You're hitting on it, right? You're going to get something so valuable out of it. We just need to empower people with the knowledge that it is okay for you to ask for what you need.
I really feel strongly that part of the reason that I ended up, who would have thunk it that I'd become this master communicator when, I could barely ask for what I wanted in the early days. But I think that where our greatest pain also sits our greatest gift. And here I am 30 something years later saying, look, I was given this voice box with no instructions on how to use it. And I still remember about 15 years ago being in a meeting in corporate America. And this woman was just like, well, that's not good. This is what I need. And she got it. And I was just like, oh, you can do that? I was like, you can ask for what you want.
She did it and she didn't die? What's going on?
I was like, and she didn't damage a relationship. And she, and I was like, dang, you go. And what was really amazing is I didn't feel jealous. I had no envy. I was like, oh, I need to take a lesson from you. And I think that that's, again, one of the things that is so powerful about stepping into the worth of your own voice is that you give yourself the dignity of living your best life at your greatest potential when you learn how to ask for what you want. And we're not talking about, some materialistic layer. And although that's fine if those are things they feel, there's no judgment, but it can be something as I want respect, or I deserve more money, or I'm negotiating flexible hours, or I need this, fill in the blank. You have every right to honor the worth of your own voice. And so one of the things that I tell everybody is, when it comes to your toughest conversations, the very best thing that you can do to set yourself up for success is to plan, to map, to walk through it before it even happens.
That's something that I don't think a lot of us do.
We wing it.
Right?
We totally wing it.
Well, and we don't realize, and I love that you say that you became a master communicator when you were, frankly, really bad at it at first. We don't give credit to the fact that this is a skill that you developed by working on it. We look at these conversations where somebody maybe negotiates really well during a meeting, or this woman that was an example, she likely planned for that conversation well in advance so that she could walk in and confidently ask for exactly what she wanted. You don't see that planning. You just see this person who delivers this request really elegantly and gets it. And you think, she's really good at this, like it's some kind of innate talent, not a skill that she built over time that you too can build by practicing and preparing.
Absolutely. And every single one of us can get better at communications, because it is a skill. It's not an inborn talent. It's not something innate. It's not like you were born with this incredible singing voice, and like, and even if you are naturally mathematically inclined or spatially inclined or musically inclined, you still practice to get better. And some of us, yes, some of us start out and we're so eloquent, from the womb, and others of us are like, okay, I just got to get better at this. And you can. And I think that one of the things that, just as a great example, even when you don't get exactly what it is that you want, you get clarity coming out of what's important to you. And then how are you going to pivot or move? And I'll give you a great example. So I was coaching a young woman. She was the daughter of a friend. So I was just out for a walk. She called me. She had been, I'll just leave it at this, she'd been egregiously abused in her work situation. She's on the front lines in New York City right now. And one of these companies is completely taking advantage of her 60 hours trying to help doctors. And she was telling me this scenario, and I said, well, are you willing to walk away from this? And she was like, oh yeah, they totally abused me. I said, okay, if you know that you've got multiple opportunities, then let's walk through how you're going to have this conversation. Well, she texted me yesterday and she said the conversation went extraordinarily well because I held my own. She says, but their responses just completely clarified for me, I no longer want to work for them. Now, she didn't get the salary increase that she wanted, but what she got was perhaps, and I truly believe this, April, she got something better. And that is the confidence to walk away, to go create something better where she's appreciated and acknowledged for how hard she's working. And so I just think there's moments when you realize, okay, I'm asking for X and I may not get it, even if I prepare for it. But then detach a little bit and say, well, if I don't get X, well, then what would I get that's Y that could be just as valuable or more valuable?
That's amazing. That's a really great way to think about how you would prepare for that conversation, because I can imagine if you've got that, secondary benefit or that secondary outcome in mind that also would be very valuable to you, you're not so hung up on one outcome. And if I don't get that, this is an utter failure. It's like, no, there are multiple outs here. There are multiple ways for me to have a successful conversation with whomever it's going to be. I just think that would make you feel a lot more confident going in, knowing that it's not just a one and done thing. It's not just, I'm either going to get it or I failed. I think that's great.
And I think it gives you more confidence in your Monday morning quarterbacking. So what do we all do? Whenever we have a conversation that goes awry or sideways, or that we don't get what we want, we overanalyze it. It's that Monday morning, oh, I wish I could have, I should have said this, I should have done that. Here's what happens. When you really prepare for your tough conversation, whether you get what you want or not, but let's go with not, you come out of it on that Monday morning saying, and I still did the very best that I could. And I prepared for it. And I did such a great job. I did the best that I could at the time. So what do I do now? And so instead of, and this is great, instead of continuing to beat yourself up and channeling your energy in this negative, backward focused conversation in your head, you're now done with that conversation. You're like, oh, April, oh, AmyK, I did the very best that I could. So now what? So now let me start moving forward with that information that I either, that I take from that or the result from that. But now I'm moving forward instead of still beating myself up. And that allows you to create more momentum that's positive and forward focused and get you closer to what you do want.
That's awesome. Those are all such great things to think about as we, really start reemerging and moving towards something that is going to be this new normal that we build, especially if we don't want it to look exactly like what it did before all of this began. I want to switch gears a little bit because whenever I have somebody who is an expert on the line, I always like to squeeze as much out of them as possible. So just to be completely transparent that's what I'm doing. You're also really great about helping people understand the importance and the value of the conversations that they're having with themselves. Can you dive in there a little bit?
I think that really great communication starts with me, myself, and I. I think when you start looking at the words that you use inside your head, the stories that you create, the language that you use, it shapes your thoughts and beliefs. And without getting too woo-woo, I really do believe that the world is a reflection of your belief system and not the other way around. And so I love phrases where, I'll just do a classic example. My world switched a lot to virtual. I'd been speaking virtually for a very long time, but not to the level that we're now going to be expected to. And so I brought in all this equipment and I found myself telling myself the story of, oh, this is hard. Oh, this is hard. Oh, this is new. And then I caught myself. I was like, no. Hashtag, I can get good at this. Hashtag, I can get good at this. And so what I find myself now is like this piece of equipment will arrive in the mail and I have no idea what it does yet, but I know that I needed it. And I'm like, okay, AmyK, hashtag girlfriend, we are going to get good at this. And what's so fun is that it turns this apprehension and stress into like this humorous moment of like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to figure it out. And I get excited. And so it's just a mindset switch. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think that's really important, especially with everything that's going on in the world, and it's going to go on for quite some time. And I really want people to realize that this is not just going to end in 2 weeks. We're going to go through multiple different phases, but through each one of these shifting changes, to tell yourself, I am determined to see this with love. I am determined to take action from love, really takes the fear and the anxiety out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love for yourself, love for other people. I mean, it's very related to a lot of the psych work around the importance of gratitude. And people talk about it all the time. Like gratitude gets thrown around all the time, but it does. And, this compassion for other people, it gets thrown around because it is one of the most powerful things psychologically we can do to improve our own mindset, which, to your point, that mindset is the lens through which we experience absolutely everything. So you're right. I mean, your world is a reflection of your belief system. It's a reflection of the lens that you're looking at it through. And what people don't realize, and this is one of the biggest things we're trying to do with Peak Mind, is get people to realize how much control over that lens that they have. Maybe you can't control the events that are happening out there. The pandemic did its thing, like it's doing its thing. We responded the way we did. Our government, other governments, your family members, like whomever, they did what they did. But your ability to experience those events that maybe you can't control, the experience that you have with them is something that is very much inside your control. I totally agree with you. It's mindset is a really big deal. And it does start with how we talk to ourselves. That's amazing.
One of the things that I'm encouraging our clients to do is to go on probably the most important diet of their life right now. And before anybody listening gets pissy about what I'm about to say, it's a diet most of us have never heard of because it has nothing to do with food. It's a conversation diet. And it's really to look at the fact that whatever we take in mentally is going to either nourish us and fuel us and feed us, or it's going to erode us and poison us. And so when you think about limiting the conversations that you're having that are negative, about the media that you're taking in, the social media that you're absorbing, just to be really mindful that your psychological strength is going to be a reflection of the conversation diet that you're on right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they're so impacted. Yeah. I mean, everything that we're taking in, our mind is absorbing it, and it influences us in ways that you can't even believe. It is so powerful. I'm really excited also. I want to make sure we talk about this a little bit because you have a book that has just come out that it's basically like the how-to manual, right? Like you've been this expert communicator. You've figured out how to have these difficult conversations and how to negotiate. And that's amazing, but it's even more amazing that you've basically put it into a manual in your new book. Can you tell us a little bit about this book, about what's in it, where we can get it, like all of the good things?
I am so excited. So people are like, why did you write this? And I'm like, well, it's a self-help book, but it was the self-help book that I needed. So it is truly the ultimate self-help book. And I wish I'd had it, 30 years ago. But one of the things that I love about this book, and I know it sounds really weird because I wrote it, but I love that it is so straightforward with these brilliant magical phrases. It's not about scripting. It's not about being canned. It's not about being rote. It's about having these just brilliant and beautiful back pocket one-liners that you can pull out because they will totally change the course of a tough conversation and make it highly profitable. And highly profitable can be everything from, yes, maybe closing a deal or negotiating a higher salary to a better experience, to a boundary established, to a relationship healed. So just really quick, like a fun story. I am not a therapist. So I have to get that out like right in front. I'm not a therapist. I'm a certified life coach. I've been a biz strategist, a speaker, an author, like all these cool things, like a cool aunt. I'll even take the title of cool aunt, but I'm not a therapist. And yet when I'm coaching, I'm often coaching for organizational business strategy, team alignment and dynamics. But here's the cool thing, April. About 4 calls in, a CEO will inevitably say, AmyK, do you have 5 minutes? Or can I have 5 minutes of your time? And I'm like, oh, here it goes. It's going to be marriage or kids. Like, what do I want to put my $50 on today? And last year, one of my biggest wins was I was coaching this gentleman, well-known, like not going to say his name. And he says, hey, AmyK, do you have 5 minutes? And I said, sure. And he says, I've been married for 30 years, 29, pretty miserably. And my heart hurt. I was like,
I totally hear you.
April, this is so sad, right? This is no way to live your life. This is no way to be in a relationship. So then he humorously says, can you fix her? And I was like, ah! It's like, no,
like, that is not what I do.
That's not what I do. That's hilarious. And by the way, totally inappropriate. But I did ask him an incredible question. And I said, who do you need to be worthy of an incredible 30-year marriage? Who do you need to be that somebody's going to want to chase you out in their bedroom, let alone the globe for 30 years? Who do you need to be somebody's best friend? And over the course of another 3 coaching calls, he ends up, and this just made me feel so good. He called me, and the very first words out of his mouth on like third call later is like, AmyK, I'm having the best relationship I've ever had in my life.
Relationship.
Yeah. And he was really sweet. And he said, and my daughter's speaking to me again. And I thought, this is how important this is. And I'm going to be really clear. I do not have an ego. This is not me. This is about sharing a tool that worked with somebody who had to be strong enough and brave enough and courageous enough to say, I'm going to try it and see what happens. Yeah. He owns this. This is 100% his victory. And it just, to me, like the tools that I used with him, they're in the book. And I just sort of felt like if we could share this, how much good could we do for other people when you just find the worth of your own voice?
That's so beautiful. This is why I adore having you on. I think this might be your 3rd time on the podcast, maybe 2nd, I can't remember. But I absolutely adore having you on because you can always sort of break it down to the heart of the matter and dive right in and get actionable like right at the get-go. So I love having you on, and your energy is just amazing. So I just love having you here. Can you tell people a little bit about where they can find you website-wise, if they want to learn more, where they can get the book, that type of thing?
Yeah, so let me start. One of my core values is generosity. So if you go to amyk.com, it's 4 easy letters, AMYK, my first name, amyk.com, you can get a ton of free communication tools right off of our homepage, whether you need to close a deal, talk to a difficult board member, if you're struggling with being totally stressed out. We have all kinds of tools that are free. Then you can get the book, Get It, at Amazon.com. It's available in every way, shape, and form, from ebook to paperback to Audible to all that good stuff. And then if you're like, wow, all that was amazing and it worked and I want to become, a master communicator, my signature program, The Power of Profitable Conversations, you can join us there. And that lasts for a whole year with over 50 different conversation tools and 50 different videos. So that's really robust.
I love it. Those are all great resources for people. And I mean, even it's such a, I don't want to say basic, like it's easy, but like it's such a fundamental skill for you to have, that enriching yourself in this way, either through the book or through your free resources or through your signature program, like any of these things, becoming a better communicator is going to improve your relationships. It's going to improve, your work life. It's going to improve your friendships. Like every one of those things, every aspect of your life involves communicating. And so getting better at it, I can imagine, would improve every single one of those. So I would encourage people to check this out for sure, because AmyK knows her stuff. I mean, she has been doing this for a long time and has the best stuff on, how to make yourself a better communicator. This has been a blast. Like I said, I absolutely love having you on, especially at a time when we can really use your voice and use your expertise to help us think about more intentionally what that future of our lives are going to look like, and how to ask for it, and how to get exactly what it is that we want. So thank you so much for being here. Truly, again, it has been just a blast once again.
Oh, thanks, April. It's always fun. And I'm not blowing smoke. You're a great conversationalist as well. You ask really great questions, which helps. It helps the dialogue a lot.
Awesome. Well, you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
It's a simple fact that nearly everyone in the world could benefit from building psychological strength, but not everyone will put in the time and effort to do so. But today you did. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Building Psychological Strength. Now, if you're interested in building the mental toughness, confidence, and resilience you need to thrive through life's ups and downs, visit us at www.peakmindpsychology.com. Also, if there's someone in your life who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them. And if you yourself found this episode valuable, meaning if you took away even one insight that you can use to build psychological strength in your own life, we would so appreciate it if you would drop us a rating and a review on iTunes. The thing is, the more ratings and reviews we have, the easier it is to get this powerful and important content out to the people who need to hear it. Remember, your mind can be your most valuable asset or your biggest liability, and you get to choose. So choose wisely, my friend. And I'll see you next time on Building Psychological Strength.